Hi, so I'm Adam Richardson from Insight. Thought I'd start by thanking everyone for coming today. Also for the panel, thank you very much for your time. And also a big thank you to all the team that have helped put this together as well. So I know a lot of work goes in the background. So I just wanted to thank the team. In terms of housekeeping, I don't know if anyone's seen Loser in the Back. That's better. And if you want to share anything on social, there's a hashtag on the walls, just insight into. So yeah, the event. This is our third event. Don't know if any of you guys have been before, but yeah, we really enjoy doing them. In terms of why we do the event, in terms of an agency, when myself and Sean set up, we're very, very keen on having it focused around people. But I think for me in particular, the event itself is about sort of creating a forum for innovation. We've recently just about to publish a white paper, which is all about helping businesses shift how they approach recruitment, changing the strategy. So a lot of the event today is going to be about that and linking in with some of the research that we've done. And then in terms of things that we plan to cover, so technology. I think everyone in this room here is involved in tech in some way or another. People, and Manchester. So I think I'll hand over to the panel. You guys want to introduce yourself and tell us what digital means to your business. So, Sean, do you want to kick things off?
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean McCleary, so I'm Managing Director of Insight. What does digital mean to my business? Well, I think, firstly, it's probably the fastest growing sector of our business. I think the growth, particularly in Manchester, is represented in this room, really. Sell-out event today, which is really pleasing to see. And that we can't find people enough to kind of grow with the vacancies that we're getting. If I look internally, digital for me gives the big thing for digital is giving our business data real time. So insights that mean that we can action things a lot quicker. We've never been a recruitment business that has just been focused on numbers. It's really been focused on quality. So being able to analyze relationships, being able to analyze, not just numbers of things that are sent, but percentages, and look at how we're building relationships, the quality of what we're doing, is really been brought forward from a digital point of view. I think lastly, I'd probably say that just recruitment generally, and particularly our agency, is that the kind of any sales or service business now in a digital world, for me, has got to work that bit harder to show how they add value, and I think for us as an agency, that pushes us to really focus more on building relationships and show how we can add value over and above just supplying a service.
Hello, I'm David Hoyle. I'm Joint Head of Data Science at Autotrade UK. Autotrade UK is the UK and Ireland's largest digital automotive marketplace. Before that, I've worked for dunnhumby, which is a customer science company, and Lloyds Banking Group. What does digital mean to me and to Autotrader? Essentially, it's our lifeblood. Digital gives us the data that allows us to understand our customers and our consumers. So we have, people who sell cars, people who buy cars on our marketplace, and we really need to understand that marketplace and what people are looking for to sort of give a good offering. Otherwise, we're going to go out of business. So digital is about understanding to me, is about understanding the data that really sort of distinguishes what people want and what people don't want, and being able to offer that to offer them what they do want in a timely manner. Consequently, what we look for, we're always on the lookout for people who've got a good set of digital skills and a good understanding of what digital data can give and what insight it can give.
Hello, I'm Rob Boley. I'm Head of Engineering at Co-op Digital. So about 2 years ago, the Co-op set up a digital function within the Co-op, which was really about the whole digital transformation journey. So, I don't think I probably need to introduce the Co-op too much, but it was founded by the Rochdale Pioneers about 172 years ago. We're owned by our members, and we've sort of founded the cooperative movement. So what does digital mean to me? I will misquote Tom Loosemore really badly here, but it is using the people, practices and tools and culture of the internet era and sort of applying them to sort of really see how we can sort of transform the way we work. So it is a bit of a kind of nebulous mass, and it's kind of one of these things a bit like agile, I think, which is easily misappropriated. People say they are starting to do digital stuff and they're just sort of chucking a layer over other things, and it's still the same thing underneath. But I think fundamentally it comes down to that. The internet really transformed the world. I've been in this game since sort of the early 2000s when the first dot-com boom busted. But I think we're still also really only at the beginning of this journey. And you know, I think it's really exciting for Manchester that I'm really seeing it starting to sort of grow and flourish here.
Hi, I am loud. Same with karaoke. I'm Neil Casey. I work for a company called ThoughtWorks. I'm responsible for digital recruitment, I would probably call it now. So what does digital mean to ThoughtWorks and us? For those who don't know, ThoughtWorks are a technology transformation and delivery consultancy. We actually help organizations go through a lot of the journeys that have just recently been discussed in the world of Netflix, Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, Autotraders, where companies no longer become their normal offerings within their marketplace. A retailer becomes a tech business with retail offerings. A financial services bank becomes a tech business driving out financial service offerings. ThoughtWorks help them go on that journey and build the platforms that allow them to make that leap. Personally, digital is, I suppose, everything around what we do nowadays. It's as a people, job, career option. In a world where I started recruiting Oracle developers in the early 2000s, it's become a lot wider, a lot deeper. And people want to be involved not just in actually technology, but they want to be feeling like they're contributing to something bigger. And the effect that digital has on the wider society has allowed them to do that.
Try not to be so loud. I'm Monica. I'm the head of digital at McCann Manchester. So McCann is an advertising agency in Manchester. We're one of the biggest outside of London. We're a fully integrated offering, maybe a little bit different to other people on the panel, in that we do everything from TV ads through to banner ads. So maybe we do a little bit of that flimsy stuff over the top. I don't know. We're the ones with the swimming pool in Prestbury, if anyone wants to know. What does digital mean to our business? So we're an ad agency, but we have a really big digital offering. So our digital offering puts us in the top 40 e-consultancy ranking of digital agencies in the UK. So people think all we do is TV ads, but actually a huge amount of our revenue now comes from digital. We have around 140 digital specialists, and we offer full service digital, everything from build through to SEO, PPC, media buying, data, the lot, everything you'd expect from a digital agency, but from an ad agency.
Good evening, I'm Marcus. I'm the Digital Technical Director at Manchester Airport Group. In my previous life and roles, I've worked in financial services for Lloyds Banking Group. I ran the internet bank for a time there, and was lucky enough really to get into e-commerce and digital from that point in my career. I turned my back on financial services and I've done retail roles at Co-op and at Walmart, and for a couple of years I was a board director at Hermes Parcelnet. So Manchester Airport Group in digital, I'm one of the key sort of members of the MAGO team, as we call it, which is always a bit confusing for people. It's MAG Online, which actually stands for MAG Omnichannel. And the digital piece really comes in that the airport's been very much a legacy business that's put assets down. It's built runways, terminals, car parks. So sort of software and digital is very much something that it's not done much about. So we've had a great privilege in building a function for all of our UK airports. There's 3 now. We just recently got rid of Bournemouth, but we're actively looking around the world for others. And we're the sort of digital agency for the airport. We've been set up as a startup, so it's been great to build that team. And we're just looking at all the sort of things that digital can do for a customer to improve the experience as they pass through our airports. I'm sure you've all had your own experience of it. Some of them are not great. And our role really is about blending that physical journey with digital to create something pretty awesome that we can be proud of looking forward.
Hi, I'm Gareth Chidgey. I'm currently working as a cloud architect and DevOps consultant at Tyres on the Drive. In the last 12 months, I've built 3 teams pretty much from scratch. One as engineering manager for the Hook Group, one as head of development for a company called AppLearn, and one as head of engineering for Auden Group. That was good fun building 3 teams. I'm pretty sure I've interviewed at least 5 people in this room in the last 12 months. So hello if you are one of those people. Yeah. I'm currently taking some time out of leading teams and actually spending some time building things. Just to explain, this is digital for me. I firmly believe in being able to do anything I ask any of my guys to do. So I tend to flip between permanent leading teams and contracting, actually doing the work, so that I can keep my hand in. And at the moment, AWS is my thing. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. I think we'll move on to technology in just a second, but one of the things I wanted to notice was, Monica, you're VP of Manchester Digital.
Not quite VP, we don't use it.
No? Okay. Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about Manchester Digital as well?
So yeah, I joined the board of Manchester Digital this year. So if people know, the Manchester Digital board has been restructured, and it's taken a slightly different shape. So the board is a bit smaller, set up by a very nice lady at Autotrader. So it's still taking shape. We're sort of looking at it, but yeah, it's a much smaller board. And we're hoping that actually what that means is a bit more focused and driven. So my pitch for becoming a board member was very much around diversity and in tech. It's probably evident I'm the only girl on the panel, which is fine. I'm kind of used to that. I lead a team of boys, which I kind of do. My team of 35, there are only 6 girls in. I had to count them up today. So actually I'm really keen to see and talk to people about how we make our industry more inclusive, and that for me is a role that Manchester Digital can play in Manchester in terms of kind of opening that up and saying we're really open to that kind of talent.
So yeah, as I said earlier, I think everyone in this room is involved in technology in one way or another. So I think we'll sort of kick the speeches off and talks around technology now. I know ThoughtWorks have just published their TechRadar. I think it's volume 17, is it? So I think, yeah, in terms of, what's that all about, Neil? How's that going?
Yeah, so that's put together by our technical advisory board, who are some of the most prestigious technologists in the world. So yeah, thank you for giving me that one, because it's very complex. The radar itself is, for those who don't know, it's a cumulation of some of the learnings that we have as a global organisation. So ThoughtWorks are about 4,500 people globally, and we deliver in 37 different countries, 38 different countries. And what the TechRadar is a cumulation and a radar of the tools that we're using, the approaches, the platforms, the different tech that we're getting involved in. It's only a ThoughtWorks temperature check. It doesn't necessarily reflect all the other things that are out there that people are using. It's just what we can, I suppose, credibly say that we've got experience in, and that looks at an adopt, a trial, a put on hold, and I think the official terms disregard. I can't remember the actual terms. Don't use. And we use that quite heavily. But I think that changes pretty much half year to half year. And it's not big enough to incorporate everything we do. But what I would say is that ThoughtWorks as a company, when we tend to look at long-term strategy, we tend to look more at what we call our seismic shifts. They tend to change every 2 years. In line with what we're seeing, and a lot of that now is built around things like rise of the robots. You'll have probably all have seen the new Amazon Go store, which basically allows you to walk in, pick things up, and walk out. And if
we're not worried about that at all.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the effect, I suppose, that has from a tech perspective, it looks fabulous, and it's obviously from a customer perspective, it's cool. From a society perspective, it's a case of actually there was probably 30 people working in that store. And how does that affect the workers, and how does that affect the jobs? So the rise of the robot is about actually how do we create that type of, I suppose, technical improvement while having a positive effect and I suppose an enhancing effect on society. One of the things we're looking at is what we call humanity augmented, which is aligned to the different tech that we're now seeing, from everything from wearables to VR, AR, everything from wearing things on your glasses on your head where you go golfing to the fact that you can actually simulate a decommissioning of a nuclear submarine without ever having the problems that you see obviously in those type of environments. So those type of things are going to be key. Data science and the use of data is, I think we talked earlier, every CEO and every CTO, CDO, CIO, whatever the job titles are nowadays, would agree that data science is going to be a huge part of their businesses going forward. They'd all stick their hands up. If you asked them what it was, not many hands would probably go up. And that's the thing at the moment, to try and create realistic offerings, realistic commercial uses. If you go into academia, the use of data and the light years ahead of what we see in the commercial space, their ability to take that into a commercial offering is where we see big gaps. So helping that delta, working with academia to try and drive that forward. Does that answer some of that?
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, in terms of, having the right technology in your business, is there anyone that would want to add to sort of the importance of having the right tech and sharing with the audience?
Well, I guess the question there is, what do you mean by the right tech? I mean, the right tech should be right for the business, right for the kinds of questions or decisions that you're trying to make or operations you're trying to run with that tech. That analysis, those decisions should be made objectively. And your staff, will always, good people will always adapt to new tech. They'll relish that opportunity. So yes, you need the right tech, but it should be focused on what are you actually trying to do, and the business question needs to come first. That pulls the tech, then you adapt to to that tech. Obviously, that takes a while, so businesses have to become, comfortable with the idea that, they need to allow a learning curve to sort of get familiar with these technologies. So, like a lot of companies, at Autotrade, we make use of AWS and various technologies built on that interact with that. Getting familiar with that, and learning how to get the maximum out of that takes time. It's not immediate. It's not a question of just dropping tech straight in and you get the gains. Those gains can take a year, 18 months, 2 years before they really bed down.
Anyone else?
I was just going to agree with something David said there. I think it's about understanding the customer need or looking what problem you're trying to solve. And not getting carried away with, forgive me, the TechRadar and looking at the sexy stuff on there and thinking it'd be really great and cool to be using that stuff. Sort of approach we've tried to advocate is just, do the right thing at the right time, the smallest possible thing you can do, last responsible moment. Sorry, I don't want to drop a load of cliches, but it's really important when we've been investing in our business that we don't go all in on something big and cumbersome that we're then beholden to. And one of the challenges we've seen, or I've seen certainly in a couple of my businesses, is that people get sold things by salespeople. They read things in brochures that tell them that wonderful things are going to happen, and it doesn't happen. Believe me, I've got the scars on my back, deep and raw to prove that. So, I think what the sort of new age of digital and the sort of new approaches is just there's lots of really good tech out there. Choose wisely. And choose for today, stroke tomorrow. Don't be sort of getting carried away with massive investments, because it's just not the way to do it anymore.
Okay.
Probably just add a little bit. I suppose we sit a little bit on the other side of the fence to that. Our role as an agency is to be kind of doing what we've just been talking about in terms of TechRadar. As our clients are expecting us to be telling them where that tech is going, what it's doing, and expect us to know what's out there, having tried it, having built stuff for it. So, you're absolutely right. When we go to a client, we're saying, make your choices carefully and choose the right thing. And actually we've probably got to be 2 or 3 years ahead of that in terms of what we're trying and talking to. Because my feel is, or my view on it is, with the sort of day-to-day tech, it's not okay to experiment. You've got to be an expert in what you do. But with the more experimental stuff, it's okay to go to a client and say, do you know what? I'm not quite sure. We think there's an application for your business. Let's work through that together with you. So we're investing with you. But we have to be ahead of that. We can't be experimenting with client implementations.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you know, where we come up as an agency is finding the right people for your business who've got the technical skills, but also balancing that with people that have got the industry skills or the experience in digital. I think one of the things I was keen to learn, David, was, you know, recruiting data scientists. You've got people coming from a very academic background or, you know, with a lot of sort of technical skills, but then applying that to a commercial setting. What are the challenges that you find?
Okay, so there's several challenges. Obviously, you know, just fishing in a pool of data scientists where lots of companies are fishing in that same pool. So, you know, obviously it's a very competitive marketplace. So just, you know, getting those candidates in front of us, getting ourselves in front of those candidates as an attractive place to work is one challenge we face. When we do get candidates in front of us, trying to assess, okay, you know, are they going to sort of fit into our culture? Do they have the right, not only skills, but also can they apply them in a business context? And one of the biggest challenges any data scientist, you know, will face is that transition from an academic setting. You know, when they're learning all the theory about the advanced algorithms, and then when you actually have to apply it in a real world situation. So a lot of people might have applied it in a research situation, but in a business setting it can be very different. You know, the fact that, you know, business is never, you know, business data systems are never, you know, as you'd want them. There's always going to be challenges. There's going to be hiccups, missing data, timelines, questions that get thrown at you completely left field by, you know, by your you know, CEO, and you need to come up with the answer tomorrow when you don't even have the necessarily all the data you'd like to be able to answer it. So one of the things I always look for, you know, if someone hasn't got a, you know, necessary experience, what I'm looking for is that curiosity, that ability to sort of look at a piece of data and go, oh, that's strange, why is that happening? Start thinking about it. That ability to sort of like be a real self-starter in how you sort of query data. Yes, I'm expecting people to have a certain base level of technological skill sets, of skills. If they haven't, yeah, well, they can acquire the additional ones. If I can see you know, some sort of demonstration of a real curiosity and a real drive in some sort of setting, then I know I've got someone I can work with. So you can take someone relatively fresh, you know, who hasn't got that industry experience. If they have got the industry experience, then again, I'd look for, you know, what has that person been doing? Have they really sort of, in their roles, pushed? Have they been delivering, or have they just been sort of largely following orders, pushing buttons on software? I want the person who's actually going to sort of like tell me what, you know, the solution should be, rather than me having to tell them what I think the solution should be.
Just a quick thing on that, I'd always recommend hiring on potential, not on the skills that people have right now, and really think about your interview process and how it pulls that kind of information out. Because, yeah, I mean, you've just got such a myriad of different things that people bring and the experience they have. You're never going to find that perfect shape. So what you're really looking for in an interview process is, do they have that aptitude? Do they have the right cultural fit? Really less worry too much about ticking all the boxes on the other things as well. Obviously being mindful, it's going to take them some time to get up to speed, but that really pays off in the long run, rather than, right, this person, fantastic, they've got all the skills, came across a bit funny in the interview, don't worry about it, they'll get the job done, because you'll be dealing with that in 6 months' time, and trust me, you don't want to be there. So.
Yeah, with regards specifically data scientists, it's not something that I've hired for before, but I've built tech teams with testers, analysts, developers over the last 3 or 4 years. I think just to mirror the points already made, there's only ever really 2 questions I'm looking to get answered during an interview process. The first one really is the person I'm speaking to capable of learning the skills required to do the job? Because the reality is, somebody coming into a new team isn't going to have the knowledge, probably isn't going to have the exact mix of technology that you're using, because no 2 teams are the same. Part of the way that I do that, and part of the way I tend to find out is somebody interested in learning the right things, is a tech test. Now, a lot of people go, oh, tech test, you're just looking. I'm actually only looking for one thing in a tech test. Have you tried it? I don't care what's actually there. Were you able to start solving the problem? So it's only ever a 30-minute thing. You'll come in and do it in the office. Were you able to actually sit down, look at it, and start to solve the problem. It's not about what the solution was. It's not about how well that the code is constructed or whatever. It's about, have you got that aptitude to try and solve the problem that's been set? The second question is, well, I call it the bell end test. Essentially, could I sit next to this person for 8 hours a day without wanting to stick my fist straight through their face? And as long as you can do that, you're probably going to be enough of, I don't really like the term cultural fit, but able to adapt to the team. But if anybody on the team is likely to punch you, you're probably not going to get the job.
I'm just checking how long we're going to be here, because he's a big lad, he's Gareth, isn't he? Someone give me a nudge if he's about.
I'd just like to pick up a bit on what Rob and Gareth had said that about the interview process being actually key, and it's one thing I've sort of learnt the hard way that. And one thing we're adapting, to at the moment at Autotrade is when we run an interview for data scientists, we are now introducing a pair test, like a pair programming test that you get in for devs, because what you think, what you realise is we want to assess how someone operates in the environment they're actually going to be in. If you give someone a technical test for an interview, well, when you actually go and work on a problem, you're not working blind. You've always got Google for you to sort of like, and you can look up something on Stack Overflow, So that's the environment you should actually test for. Can they work and discuss and help solve a problem as a team? And that's more important than their ability to recall and their technical knowledge.
Sorry, go on, yes.
I was just going to chip in. I've been the recruiter, I suppose, been a bit of a recruitment question. So ThoughtWorks, I would echo all the points you've made around hiring for potential and passion, because I think those are the things you can't necessarily give someone when they join a business. Our process has recently changed, actually. We had the same process for about 26 years. And last year, just to give you some sort of data, actually, we hired 67 developers in the UK, and to do that I looked at just over 3,000 CVs. Now you could probably argue we don't know what we're looking for. It's a mixture of reasons, but the conversion rate is probably for every 4 people we get in the office, we hire 1, and the majority of that isn't technically related. It's cultural fit, and it's passion, and it's wanting to be involved, wanting to be part of a community. But the actual process itself, we've created as a what we call a simulation day. So they come in, there's a story wall, they go through the priorities of the user stories and feature list with a business analyst. They then go into a development sprint where they've chosen one of the features to actually build, and they do that as a pairing process with the developer. They then write and create a showcase, which they then deliver to a technical and a non-technical colleague. And then they go into a retro with one of our management team where they review the whole day, go through things they haven't covered before, and actually it feels like a full day as they would do if they came and joined ThoughtWorks on day 1 and they're sat not necessarily on a project, or if they were in a project, what they would expect to see. That's what we're doing at the moment, because we wanted to make it as realistic as possible, because lots of people can do tech tests, lots of people can feign cultural fit for half an hour or an hour, but realistically, can they communicate their ideas? Can they do that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to that again, just to re-emphasize it. We do a similar thing at the co-op, and we try and get them into as natural an environment as possible for all roles. We have technical, hands-on, practical exercises for delivery managers, quality analysts, platform engineers, software engineers. We spend time with the team. We really look, and you spend a lot of time on it. I think that's the other thing. A day, it feels like a lot of time. It's worth it. This is someone that you've got a duty of care for in your organization. You've got that responsibility for them. You hiring the wrong person is your fault, not theirs. And if you're getting into a difficult situation where you're going to have to do some kind of performance management process because your interview process really wasn't making sure that person's right for your organization, I just feel that's your responsibility.
One of the things you mentioned before, Neil, was about digital transformation. Rob, you mentioned about companies, doing what they always do and sticking another layer on top. In the white paper that we've just recently published, the research showed that 20% of market leaders would lose their dominant position to a business formed after the 2000s if they didn't evolve digitally. sort of Rob with the Co-op Digital, Marcus with Mago. Quite interested to hear about your journeys with your businesses going through the transformation.
Okay, I'll start. So it's quite an interesting one for us because part of what a lot of businesses have had to do over the last few years is face this digital strategy challenge and the fear of digital disruption, these words that get thrown around organisations. And for the airport group, it sort of falls into two sort of camps. We've pretty much got a business that we believe can't be disrupted because we've got a big runway and a terminal, and it's very hard for anybody to put another big runway and a terminal by that. So our sort of business-to-business side of the organisation is sort of very solid. But then we have a massive B2C side of the business, so the non-aeronautical revenues that we make from people car parking, people spending money in retail. And that's where we really start to get scared, like everybody does, about when's it our turn, or when is it the turn of that revenue stream to fall off a cliff. Anybody working in retail, whatever that is, will know how hard it is to compete online. So we're working out how do we do that. If people no longer see coming to the airport as an opportunity to get a great price in duty free, maybe it's not as exclusive as it once was. Maybe just people don't think about it. If I think 10 years ago, going on holiday meant buying some duty free. Now it just doesn't mean that to me. So we have this big challenge, and it comes from the fear that a lot of money we make at probably higher margin could just disappear overnight. Whether that's Amazon, people buying their goods through that and having same-day delivery and not bothering buying any retail product to the airport, or it's the sort of future spectre of autonomous vehicles and people that no longer drive to the airport and park the car. So we sort of face it from many different angles, and it's just about having the right sort of way through that, how we have some form of strategy, but don't sort of sit up at night worrying about it. And it's just about trying things really, and looking at how we can extend the opportunity to be a bit different in the digital space. Talked a little bit about data, but one of our massive opportunities is that we have 60 million passengers walk through our airports. We probably only know anything about 20% of those. So most of the people are just walking through anonymous. If we could do anything around mining that data and reusing that data, looking how we share data with other infrastructure businesses like the train companies, the bus companies, the taxi firms, the Ubers of the world. We've got to be open-minded to thinking about not just sitting behind our four walls and working it out for ourselves, but getting out there and working how partnerships work. We do a little bit with organisations like Manchester China Forum, if people have heard about that. There's a massive drive across Manchester about working with Chinese business. As an airport, very lucrative to us. Chinese passengers spend lots of money. So there's a number of different things we'd look at to say, how do we really provide them with a great experience? How do we make it a joined-up experience, so when they hit the airport, they then have a flow through to the rest of their visit to Manchester, whether that's hotels, theatres, Manchester City, Manchester United, whatever it might be. We've really got to think beyond our core business into other things, other adjacencies that we can get after, and that's the really exciting part of it. Creating something that you can actually then sort of work with other organisations and create value together. So that's sort of where we are at the moment.
It's a difficult one really for me, because it's just such a broad question and quite how to answer it. So I'll go with the digital transformation from the cultural perspective is very hard. That's not news, particularly in large organisations that have been working in a very traditional way for a long time. The ways of working are really feels like opposite ends of the spectrum sometimes. It's a long journey. To be honest, actually, though, I've worked in quite a few, most of my career has been in sort of smaller startups, and it's pretty similar there when you're starting a new organisation. Anybody that's in a small startup, when it's like 3 or 4 people around the table, it's really easy. When you try and take that to scale, you face a lot of the same challenges, and a lot of it comes down to the way you communicate and the way you organise yourself. And particularly one of the really big teams in the digital space, in the digital space from my perspective, is getting everybody aligned around a single goal. And particularly when you look at those agile ways of working, it's how you're working as a sort of cross-functional team in that perspective. and getting everybody aligned around that. And that's all right if you're in a small bubble, but I mean, I worked at startups where you're working. I worked at Masabi, who were doing mobile ticketing, and we had to work with New York's MTA transport agency. That was really hard as well. So our customers were very traditional in their approach, and we were trying to deliver a service to them where we were trying to develop and iterate all the time. So it's not something that you can really escape anywhere. It is really difficult. I think my advice around that is that you really need to have the empathy and appreciation and respect of other people in their roles. You can't just go in there walking around talking about how Agile is really amazing and what you do is crap. You've really got to understand the perspective from where they're coming from and have that kind of emotional maturity around that to take them on that journey. And it's not about putting Agile on them. It's not talking, I mean, even using words like digital, I think, can be really dangerous as well. You've really got to be thinking about how you're just trying to take some of the tools, practices, ways of working that we talk around in our digital landscape and try and use them as enablers. It's not easy. I would really have to say that. But yeah, I mean, as to your point, well, I think we're all dead, frankly, because Amazon's won. You know, that's really scary. Netflix, you know, they're now just really eating up the media market as well. It's getting to the point where there's like 2 or 3 organizations pretty much dominating every sector in society. What does that mean for the rest of us? You know, and I think that's an interesting space. And I think, you know, it doesn't matter what you're doing, because whatever your startup's doing, you know, Facebook are going to come and eat it up. You know, Google are going to come and eat it up. And that's the real challenge for all of us.
So technology is obviously a key part in our role as recruiters, and I'm sure as your part as well, Neil. I think something we always hear is about how technology is going to leave recruitment behind. I mean, Sean, you know, you've been in recruitment for 15 years. What's your view on that?
We won't talk about recruitment 15 years ago because Neil was there or thereabouts at certain parts of that. Look, I think I read something this week actually in a Gartner report that said that by 2020, a lot of the large corporations, about 20% of their applicants will speak to chatbots before they'll actually communicate with a human through the interview process. And that obviously is really scary from a recruiter, but then it's also a massive opportunity is the way that I see it. Yes, technology will impact recruitment. You know, I'm not sure I'd subscribe to Rob's that we're all going to die, but, you know, if we are, let's get drunk tonight. No, ultimately, I think it presents a challenge, but it also presents an opportunity. You know, I think you've heard Google for jobs, Google for candidates. You know, 10 years ago, I was told that LinkedIn was going to replace a recruiter as well. And I think last count, the recruitment industry is worth about 365 billion globally. So I think as anything, as you know, any industry, recruitment's got to evolve. And the key part for me is the human element of recruitment. You know, can a robot influence a situation? And you know, I don't believe it can. So I think that the kind of lower end tasks that maybe, you know, an algorithm can pair a CV word search with a candidate CV and send it to a client, brilliant. But I think in terms of the real role of a recruiter, you know, influencing, negotiating, building relationships, the human element becomes more and more important.
Yeah, I think as a non-recruiter, I'll give my take on it. You know, you're talking about the influence of automation. You know, I think Rob mentioned about, or Neil mentioned about robots taking over jobs. As with anything, the jobs which can be taken over, those which are routine, mundane. The tasks which can be taken over, not necessarily the jobs, are those which are routine, mundane, can follow rules. What that gives is an opportunity, as with any sort of process that where you start to put, involve AI. You know, that gives an opportunity to enhance the process by adding allowing that person, the recruiter, to add the extra value. particularly for the high-end jobs. So you've got recruiters then who are able to focus on the real nuanced aspects of recruitment. And I guess, like everyone here, we may have had a bad experience from recruitment. So anything that sort of enhances the whole recruitment process and gives the recruiter more information to make a real sort of quality recommendation to a client is only a good thing. So it's another example of, I think Neil mentioned it, about how, it's technology coming in and replacing certain tasks, but there's always the opportunity for humans to augment that process. So I don't think, there's certain dull parts of recruitment I'm guessing, will disappear, but recruitment agents, entirely, probably not.
Yeah, definitely not. Look, I think the reality is there's a lot of technology out there, and as a corporate recruiter, I tend to look for the opportunities of not working with Sean as much as I possibly can. And if that means I can get access to candidates quicker and easier and more effectively, then I'm going to take that. But you don't marry your first match on Tinder. There's a relationship between the person who you matched with and the way that you go forward. There's a human interaction. Moving jobs is actually one of the most stressful things people do. What do they say? Moving jobs, getting married and buying a house. And if you can... personally, I wouldn't be comfortable just having some sort of artificial intelligence telling me what I'm going to be doing with the next 3 to 5 years of my life. I want some sort of confidence with a relationship that I've built with someone who actually has empathy and can really put themselves into my position. So as the job of a recruiter, especially being in the company I'm working for, part of my role is to take a candidate on that journey from their initial interaction with ThoughtWorks to the point where they feel like this is somewhere they want to spend 10 hours a day, or 7.5 according to the contract. But yeah, so I think there's always going to be there's really good opportunities for technology to make our job easier and more efficient and effective, and from a candidate perspective, actually get access to roles that maybe you wouldn't have unless you were on a database somewhere or you're actively looking, or you responded to a recruiter, which I know you probably never do because you get 1 million in-mails a day. But I think, it has a really important part, but it's not going to replace the emotional side of the interactions you have with humans.
I was just going to say, Sean, I think your insight chatbot's brilliant. He's called Lee, and he's been using his intelligence artificially for about 6 months, famously with me.
Be interested to hear what Nick said about that as well. I think this moves on quite nicely to the next sort of area we wanted to focus on was around people. It's quite clear technology plays a key part, and it's in terms of attracting people to your business, but I think it's always got to come back to people. And I think, one of the starting points would be around sort of employer branding and awareness of who you are. And making people that want to work for you. Marcus, I'm particularly interested with Mago's journey, becoming a recognised digital business, and what you did to attract people.
I'll be short because I'm hogging the mic. I think it's been a really interesting one, and Manchester Airport is probably or certainly a brand or organisation that everybody knows. And when we've been trying to hire digitally, it's been quite a challenge in some respects, but what's helped us is having a really good story. The Mago brand, or omnichannel brand as we call it, has helped really establish the fact that as a startup we want to try and build a digital team from the sort of ground up and do that right. And I think some of the opportunities we've had for people to come in and establish that and be part of that and shape things has been a really good opportunity to sell to candidates. I'm sure there's lots of organisations that are doing digital brilliantly and far, far better than we ever will. But I'm always slightly sceptical and slightly quick to call out in the interview that it all might be really nice and running brilliantly, and therefore you're going to get bored. There's nothing exciting to do. So I think most of the people we've had come through our door have been set the challenge of, if you are a self-starting individual who likes to shape things, doesn't like being told what to do, doesn't have a process, sort of, addiction to something, is happy, going with it, creating new value, being a person in 18 months, 2 years that says, not I was there when they did that, I actually did that. That was me. And actually, you know, being in that first 12 months, it's made it quite easy for us to actually attract some really great talent.
Monica, again, you know, from your perspective, McCann, you know, one of the largest agencies in the world, engaging with candidates, I suppose, what challenges do you face, or how do you approach it?
Probably got it from my intro when I said we're an ad agency and people don't think we're a digital agency, and I think that's so there's a number of challenges. One is we're known for advertising and not necessarily digital, so when you're trying to attract digital candidates, we quite often get people going through the door going, I didn't know there were so many of you and I didn't know what you did. Our location, which we see as a plus, but from a candidate point of view, can be really difficult. So we are in a beautiful campus location. What we've actually learned to do is to stop being apologetic about it. So we now, Jack knows I am like, if you come to interview, you have to come out to Bonnis, you have to come and meet us. We have a city centre office where we do offer co-located working, but if you come and see us, you'll see what we have to offer. We have a swimming pool, for God's sake, so, which everyone can use. Everyone goes, does anyone use it? Yeah, they do. And a pub, yeah, we have a pub too, which is hilarious because we all drive to work, so I'm not quite sure. So yeah, we're an agency. We still behave like an agency, but equally, it's not just about that. You know, we have an agency where it's not all. I've worked in lots of digital agencies where, like, I was the oldest person there. I'm not the oldest person at McCann, thankfully for me. But actually, what that gives us is a really balanced kind of workforce. So, you know, we're very keen on work-life balance. We have a massively flexible work. You know, so a lot of the stuff that millennials are looking for, McCann have been doing for decades in Manchester and almost 100 years across the world. So, and then we can offer a whole load of stuff around sort of international secondments and all sorts of stuff. But it's a tough sell. Yeah, the employer brand piece is something that, you know, we are McCann. Lots of people haven't heard of us, but equally loads of people, Mad Men did us a massive favour when I say to people, and they go, oh, Mad Men, and you're like, yeah, it's not like that anymore. But that, you know, so we are known, and sometimes I think we've been guilty of thinking, oh yeah, everybody knows us, but actually we still have a massive job to do in terms of telling people who we are, what we do, and so, you know, for us, and the other, that's the fourth issue we have, is that we work with a lot of international clients. Actually, most of our clients are not in Manchester, and what that means is we call it drawing up the drawbridge. We sort of are so focused on what we're doing and producing every day that we forget that actually our talent pool is Manchester, and actually a lot of our talent pool is Macclesfield, which is, I found out it's really small. I thought it was a lot bigger than it is. So when we're looking at talent, we have a real struggle in terms of sort of where people want to be. You know, millennials don't want to work out in the countryside. I quite like it, but I've got a family, you know. They want to be working in town, and we've had to adapt our business to deal with that, really.
Sorry, just to flip this on its head, I'm going to approach this from the other side here. I'm not going to name names, but I've worked for one organisation in the last couple of years where they've got an awesome brand and they hire people at a rate of knots that you wouldn't believe. But the average lifespan there is under 11 months. So when you are looking for jobs, do your research into the brands, because just because it looks like it's good doesn't necessarily mean that it is. I have made that mistake myself.
Yeah, I'd echo that point. And the thing I was going to say was that, you know, it's you face two challenges: attracting people and then retaining them. You know, at Autotrade we have a unique difficulty or a unique challenge that people still think of us as an old man's magazine. The last magazine we produced was about 5 or 6 years ago, so we're quite a mature digital organisation. But once people can sort of see past that, you know, particularly in data science, you know, the thing we're trying to do is get them in front of us, but also, you know, get them excited about working there, saying, look, you know, we have, you know, all these kinds of problems, all these kinds of challenges. Look how interesting and how occupied you would be, and you know, you'd have the opportunity to really, you know, use your skill set, develop, make a difference. So, yeah, you do find people, you know, quickly look beyond the brand and they actually look, what would the job actually give me? How would that job actually excite me? And then it's about, okay, you need to make sure that as a team, you can, you know, come across as credible. You know, you're attracting data scientists. You need to be able to walk, you know, show that you've walked the walk in data science. And so you've got to, you know, show that, you know, you do have people who are experienced data scientists, and you know, can lead a team, and that the candidate would actually want to, you know, convince the candidate that they actually want to come and work with you. So like yourself, you know, brand awareness is a part, but it's just a small part.
Yeah, I think I've worked for, so I've been in recruitment for about 16 years. Prior to Insight, I worked for a large global recruitment business that was FTSE 250 listed, 2,500 staff globally. And it's interesting to see how that brand positions itself versus coming into, you know, even at, you know, we've grown pretty quickly to 24 people. We're still a small growing brand. And I think it probably is easier to, if you can build a business from the ground up, to be able to build with the right brand, the right culture, get people engaged with your brand. One of the things we're doing as a recruitment business is partnering with some of our clients to help them from a brand engagement point of view. So we're working with one client at the moment. They're an insurance company, so their brand in theory represents kind of stability, predictability. That's what they want to give off as a brand. But then we're working with the IT division of that brand to really put across a brand that represents innovation and disruption. So I think, personally, I think brand engagement and culture are probably one of the biggest factors that people look at when they're looking at jobs, alongside remuneration, things like that. I completely agree with Gareth's point that, you know, do your thorough research, and hopefully that's where a good recruiter comes in. But I think that it's been proved with some of the people on the panel. Mago's probably a good idea, whether you're a company that's 2 years old like us and has had the fortune of being able to build a brand exactly how we wanted to build it, or you're a business that's evolving and got to stay atop of the game, even within an IT part of your brand. There's an opportunity to do it if you do it in the right way.
So I think, you know, we've covered in terms of, you know, your brand awareness and attracting people to your business. I think one of the areas that I'd like to look at is, you know, who you're attracting to the business and what level. I think, you know, there's always an urgent need for someone with the right skills who can start straight away and hit the ground running. But what are your businesses doing for the grassroots and entry-level people? Amal, he spoke at our last event and does a lot around sort of intense development and apprenticeships and the sort of entry-level candidates. But I'd be interested to know what your businesses are doing to attract entry-level people, graduates, and people with, you know, without the sort of proven skills.
So at McCann, we have had for years graduate recruitment programs. We've taken pretty much every year I've been there developers on placements. That's becoming more difficult as universities are no longer offering sandwich years, and we're moving into kind of apprenticeship spaces. And then for the past 7 years, we've run our own digital apprenticeship programs. That hasn't included a software apprenticeship, but we're planning to add that this year. And that's actually been one of our best sources of apprentices. We've still got apprentices from 7 years ago who are still within our business, and they stay for ages. It's been brilliant. It brings new ideas and new blood, and I think the thing that joins all of those apprentices together, they are those self-starters. They're people that really want to get on. And this year, more than any, we've seen kind of students coming in who had unconditional university offers but chose to come on an apprenticeship at McCann, which is amazing. So they do a year with us. I think they do 8 placements of 4 to 6 weeks each, and then they do 3 months at the end, and we pretty much always place all of them at the end of that into a permanent job, which is amazing. We do more apprenticeship than graduates. We do sometimes run a graduate placement program as well, but we're actually very good. We bring a lot of juniors through straight out of university. I suppose we have the scale to be able to allow that to happen. And then we've got some pretty good links in with the university, so we're always sort of looking at how we do that. But yeah, that's the sort of stuff we're doing, I suppose.
So we have a graduate scheme as well. I think we hire anywhere up to 40 graduates a year. It's normally split 50-50 between graduates from a university and people who are career changers. So they've decided to go into technology. We do work with Amal as part of our bootcamp. We do work with other bootcamps. I'll not mention other names. But they're not as good.
They're based in Manchester.
And they're not here tonight. Yeah, so I think from ThoughtWorks, we see it as an opportunity of finding people, again, going into that passion, that sort of cultural fit, but also as an opportunity of giving opportunities to people who are, I suppose, previously or unrepresented in the technology industry. So whether it's diversity, whether it's disability, ethnicity, sexuality. We do a lot of work with building programs to help a lot of those groups get into technology. So last year we run a program for 8 female candidates who had been unable to go to higher education for some life-changing circumstance, either pregnancy or have moved from war-torn countries or whatever that was. We paid for them to go through a boot camp, and then they came into our graduate scheme. They're all now nearly 12 months on and are moving into consultant-level technologists. We also have 2 universities that we've built, one in India and one in China, that we send all of our graduates to. So they come out of university or come out of one of the boot camps. They then go to ThoughtWorks University and learn more of what we probably class as the traits of a developer at ThoughtWorks, things like TDD, pairing, object-oriented design. Also the cultural stuff around consulting, learning and working with clients and as a cross-functional unit. So they become, from a time to competency perspective, they come back into the business after 16 weeks in India, and they can then go operationally into a delivery with a client more effectively.
So I've got a big list of things here. I recently moved up to Manchester, and one of the things that really excited me was I've been in London for the last 15 years and see how much of a black hole it is. You know, it just sucks up all the talent, and seeing how Manchester's been growing recently, really exciting to be on part of that journey. 2 things. Brexit obviously means there's less international talent, but also at the same time, Manchester, it's not the same as London. It's not there. And one of the things that's really got me about Manchester since I've joined is really feeling that kind of community aspect to it and the community feel. And one of the things I think that exemplifies that really well is the Manchester Digital Apprenticeship Scheme, which I know Autotrade have been so instrumental in developing, particularly because it's run very cooperatively as well. It is really exciting to have started to get involved in that, and seeing that basically it really is organised by everybody that is involved in it. So everybody that's really looking to get apprentices in there is helping to work on the boot camps as part of that. It's offering a kind of an apprenticeship scheme that just really isn't out there much, probably outside of things you might get from places like ThoughtWorks. That's really exciting. We're really pleased to have our first apprentice at Manchester Co-op Digital join recently, and hopefully we'll have more. It is a big investment as an organisation. You know, with Autotrade, you've got 200 or 300 engineers. You can probably support something like 5 or 6, right? So it does take quite a lot of investment, but it's really worth it, and we need it. And we need more people to be getting involved in things like that across Manchester, to be really working. And I think the thing, as I was talking to you earlier about, was data scientists, and could we be thinking about similar themes around that? Just a few other things that the Co-op Digital are doing. We sponsor Hack Manchester's All First Female Youth Hack, which was last weekend. We are going to the Leeds Digital Girl Tech event, where we're running some experiences of what digital means. We're involved with Hack Manchester Junior. We sponsor that as well. And we have strong relationships with Liverpool Geek Girls as well. As you see, there's a bit of a theme in there, and that's particularly because that's the point where you get into actually trying to change the dynamics of this being such a top-heavy, white privileged male industry, and that's where you have and probably we'll get onto it a bit later as well, the greater opportunities about trying to actually improve the diversity in your organisations.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the other panel, said, we ourselves have a graduate scheme, but that's largely focused on our devs, on our developers. From a data science perspective, which is if you like, a younger field, we face slightly different challenges because we don't, the team at Autotrade is 5 data scientists at the moment, and we're growing slightly. So we don't have a formal scheme in place. So therefore, we're very dependent in terms of, if you like, attracting talent and how we attract people to us and what we do on things like these kinds of, meetings, meetups, and the sort of the general community, of which actually Manchester has a surprisingly thriving community. Rob just mentioned that, you were surprised compared to, coming from London, actually how well Manchester is doing. And that's where I think, feel that we, in data science really needs to sort of focus in putting a lot of, giving a lot back to those sort of those meetings. So we host quite a few at data science at Autotrader, because we have quite a large offices, which obviously in the evening are sitting largely unused. So we have a lot of office space that we can make available for various tech meetups. We've got one a tech event coming up in March. But on top of that, as well as the community sort of events, it's the larger structures and organisations that are present in Manchester, like Manchester Digital, that help generate a thriving community that we can actually contribute to, and then consequently we can get back from.
Seeing as Manchester Digital has been mentioned so much, so we've got the Manchester Digital Skills Festival coming up mid-Feb, which is amazing. If you don't do anything else, go back to your desks, have a look at it. It's all about linking up tech companies and companies in general in digital with kids who are coming out of university and giving them an opportunity to find out more about it. So the conference happens on the Tuesday. There's a day where they can go in and meet employers on the Wednesday, and on the Thursday and Friday, lots of companies around Manchester are hosting schools for experience days. So we've got a group of kids coming in on the Thursday to find out more about what it's like working at Manchester. At McCann, and lots of other companies are doing it. So things like that as a company are really worthwhile getting involved with and help us to really kind of push that agenda that we want to see. I think everyone's doing some amazing work, and feeding into those are great.
Just a quick thing to that. Again, having come from London recently, having seen the amount of stuff going on here, it's got something on London actually. I have never seen so many kind of grassroots movements in one place. It's really exciting, and I didn't see any of that down in London.
Oh, Manchester.
Absolutely.
Yes, I mean, there's using the grassroots and entry level as a resource for your business in terms of delivering to clients. I think one of the other areas that I wanted to cover was around like sourcing models and how you use sort of other third parties. I think, with the likes of ThoughtWorks, you partner with a lot of businesses, and the same with McCann. I'd be interested, to hear, you share your experience of working with other third parties and how that adds value to your business.
I guess it's been interesting for my part. I've been at McCann for about 5 years. I've probably been more heavily involved in digital recruitment in the last 2. So we have a HR team who are actively sort of trying to build the pipeline. But I think that the sort of challenge I face around, so they're recruiting everything from TV producers to account managers to everything. And I think that it's actually really hard to ask our hiring managers to kind of know it all, really. We're asking them to kind of be experts in what we need for a tech level, from a UX, from account management to the lot. And I mean, they do an amazing job, but I think actually what we found is that partnering with the right people, and what we found is that we have to invest in time with our partners of choice. So as much as we have a roster of agencies that we work with, the ones that are best are the ones where we've put time into that relationship, and they've understood us and understood what we want and how we want to work, really. So we have a variety of ways of doing it, but we seem to have a model, but I feel like it changes every week. So
I think the great thing for me is over the last sort of 15, 20 years, I've seen a big shift back to the build of great engineering teams. Back in the dim past, I had an ATM team at Lloyds Banking Group that I think had 8 permanent members of staff and 80 people in Bangalore. And quite frankly, that scared the shit out of me. I think there was one guy of those 8 that knew how the banking system for Lloyds worked. And when he went on holiday for 3 weeks, the whole country nearly came to a standstill. And with regard in terms of, other sourcing models and partners, I think I would advocate just using people to help you get on your way, whether that's ThoughtWorks, who I've done some, work with on a few occasions in different businesses I've worked in, or similar types of organisations. I think the beauty then is really getting that help to build your capability and getting a core basis of your team that then can be very much, playing for your brand, playing for your organisation, really bought into what you're trying to achieve. And I think all of the people here are probably in a similar sort of state at the moment where they've got great engineering teams and really, that is turning into massive value. And it's a great place to be really in terms of, talent that's out there, without repeating the previous question, the talent that's out there having opportunities to work inside really, really great businesses rather than, living in fear that their job's going to get outsourced. So I think it's a fantastic place to be, coming through as a techie in this generation.
I suppose into ThoughtWorks, as Sean knows, we don't use agencies generally. Given the ratios I talked about earlier, that they wouldn't touch us with a barge pole, that'd be wasting their time. But I think from the other side of the fence, we have, if you looked around clients, we've probably got about 80 engineering teams running out of ThoughtWorks at the moment across clients. And as you mentioned just there, one of the big things about ThoughtWorks is capability shift with the clients that we work with. So it's not just about the traditional consulting model of building a product, dropping it in, and then putting a big 2 to 5 year support contract at the back end because the client don't really know what you've built for them, and it's actually advantageous for them not to know what you've built. ThoughtWorks is about actually helping clients take a capability shift as we're building the solution, so they can then be self-sufficient, they can grow, and it, as we talked about, takes them on the beginning of their journey further forward through their transformation. So I think adding value as a partner rather than just a vendor is the key aspect.
Okay, so I think in the white paper, one of the things that we really delve into is about retention and keeping hold of the best people within your business. Some of the research that we did showed that 70% of high retention risk employees would leave for progression. So personal development was something that I wanted to sort of discuss with you guys. I know, David, you're particularly passionate about sort of personal development and self-development and giving staff flexibility around that. I suppose if you want to share a little bit on that subject.
So I guess like a lot of tech companies will advertise that they have something like, say, a 10% time available for devs or for data scientists to do their own projects. Often I find a lot of companies that can be largely lip service. It's offered because it's got to be offered because every other company's offering it. And it's often it'll be say on a Friday afternoon, and that time doesn't get protected. The 10% time sort of disappears. For me, that 10% time should be so essentially what you should be saying to your teams is you've got the freedom to explore an idea if you want to. Trust your staff to sort of try out a new skill set, try out a new technology. If they think there's an opportunity to add value to the business by trying out something, then you don't need 10% time. That time should always be available. They shouldn't be needing to ask permission because it's good for you. It's good for it's good for them. It's good for your business. So I would say. I wouldn't put it as much as say, you've got 100% time, but take as much as time as you think it's gonna take. If you've hired the right people who are self-starters and are capable of making that judgment, okay, is this going to be of value to me? Is it going to be of value to the business? Then let them go ahead and just come back to you with what they found. So. And I think all companies should be doing that, because if not, your employees are just going to be stagnating and getting bored, and you're going to be losing them pretty quickly.
One thing I'll add to that is as much as that is really important in knowledge-based industries, it needs to be part of your job. If your colleagues aren't motivated, they won't use it. What I have seen before is where you get into a difficult patch in your organisation or something like that, you might have those things. you find people just don't use it. The sense of purpose for what you're doing and being able to actually provide value and feel that sort of meaningful attachment to your work is number one. And if you are not providing that, then you will be losing staff. And the particular thing about that is, well, it's just so easy to go and find another job. I really think the thing that you should be focusing on first is how you're enabling your colleagues to be able to have that kind of environment where they are doing meaningful work and they are feeling valuable as a consequence. And then once you've kind of cracked the nut on that, you will really get the value of that kind of training time kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I stole my thunder a bit there. I think,
Sorry.
yeah, that's fine. I think contributing to something is one of the biggest factors now. If you look at all the stuff that McKinsey do, they talk about the switch from a transactional relationship with an employer to actually feel like you're contributing to a bigger mission, really. And I know that's one of the biggest things we look at, and it goes beyond retention, because I think the retention actually is fed by the recruitment. If you're recruiting people who are quite transactionally orientated, if they're talking about salary, I mean, obviously we all have financial commitments, we all look at the salary, but if they're looking at hours of work, they're looking at salaries as the key aspects of why they would join you. It'll be the key aspects of why they join someone else. Contributing to something, feeling like they're part of a larger mission, and that goes to the culture of the business, what you're trying to achieve, how that's communicated. ThoughtWorks were very lucky that we were founded by a guy who was, for lack of a better term, and I've tried to find one for interviews, he's a political activist, and he was hugely focused on ThoughtWorks being part of a social justice platform for technology, and for 27 years now we've recruited identifying open-mindedness, being inclusive, actually seeing the world through others' eyes as a key part of our recruitment process. And now people see that when they join ThoughtWorks. We actually call each other thought workers, which is quite cultish, I know that. But it does lead to a more than, I suppose, a contractual relationship. It becomes more of a social contract with the business, and it pays off when we do work with UNICEF, or when we do work with Medicines Sans Frontières, or if we try to get an espresso machine and there's a 300 email chain on why their human rights aren't great for, sometimes you just want a coffee, but it's the type of passion that keeps people in the business, and we actually give people sabbatical at 10 and 15 years, and it just goes to show that the amount of people who stay to actually receive that is quite unusual. Fully paid 3 months. I'll speak to you later.
Agree with what these guys say. I think for me, I went to manage our dev team sort of 3 years into being at McCann, and there's some kind of key facts I think that kind of for me were really important. Teams want to be led by leaders, so having a leadership team that they feel that inspires them. So I'm not a tech, so Gareth on the end saying do the jobs that people can do. I've been very honest about that going into that team. I'm not a developer. I'm not going to tell a developer. I can ask difficult questions and question what they're doing and why they're doing it, because I've been doing it for long enough. But I bring something else, and I'm very honest with my teams about it. So leadership to me has been a bit about saying, I've always got time for you. So as much as I go, yeah, the door's open, the next person that comes along goes, have I got 5 minutes? I'm like, geez, I've had 35 of these today. But it's always of course I have. Door's always open. I represent my team on the board. They know that. I will absolutely, for me, I kind of say to them, look, I will, even if you've done something wrong, I will absolutely defend you until I die. That, we'll deal with the problem later. They need to feel that I'm there for them, not just to kind of hammer stuff down, top down. Transparency, I think, is really important. I think in so many businesses, especially in a corporate business like McCann, we can try and kind of protect our employees from what's going on at the top. That doesn't help anyone. So when the chips are down, I always think it's better to be open. Even if that's a bit scary, it's better to kind of say, hey, look, we're doing this. This is why some of these decisions are being made. What can I do to help you with that? So there's been sort of some key things, and I think they all do factor into the culture. They're about that team, but for me it's been about getting that team or getting my team. And we're absolutely right. It's not all about the money. I think sometimes we get caught up with we're not paying enough, but actually you've got a really close team and people feel they're coming to work with the people they like and they're friends with. why would you ever want to leave that? So for me, like having the fact that they all go on their tea break at once, I'm like, where have they all gone? But that's a really good thing, you know. I'm like, where have all the devs disappeared to? But actually, they're a really tight team. Yeah. They're a really tight team, and that matters to me in terms of making sure that people are enjoying their work. They enjoy the people they work with. They trust each other, and you know they know that we've all got each other's back. Oh.
I don't want to repeat what people have said. I just say the one thing that we try and do is just encourage a really flat hierarchy. So, you know, the work that we do to an extent has some top down, but we really sort of try and build what we do in terms of value from the bottom up. And, you know, whether that's our junior devs or we have undergraduate guys on 12-month placements, and we encourage them just to be as responsible as the next member of staff to, you know, create the workload and, you know, identify what it is we should be doing. I think it's really important that they're seen to, you know, put forward ideas of their own and then build them, and then you'll get all the things that you've just talked about in terms of that buy-in and that passion and that sort of, you know, ultimately I guess you're looking for, why would you want to go anywhere else?
Okay, so another area that we looked into in the white paper as a way of retaining people and also as attracting people was diversity. ThoughtWorks have recently, 2016, 2017 won awards for women in tech, I believe. So yeah, I mean, you know, what's that done for ThoughtWorks? You know, what edge has that given you?
We won we've won. I think the last couple of years we won the Anita Borg Award, which is the company for the best company in the world for women in technology, which is great. We don't talk about it enough, actually. It'd be great from a recruitment piece, which I try and sort of crowbar in it every time. But it's massively important to the point where just this week I actually rang Sean and scolded him about the makeup of the panel for tonight. He didn't tell me the makeup of the panel before the night, and if he gets a red, then he deserves it. The skills gap. I mean, we talk about skills gap. There's a skills gap because primarily the industry has been fished in one pool. It's been fished in white, as you mentioned earlier, privileged white males. Ironically, the entire software industry was driven by Ada Lovelace, driven by the people who created the software for the moon. It was driven by women. Women were software developers and mathematicians. And at some point in the last 30 years, that's switched to the point where we now see an average around 13 to 15% diversity mix within engineering teams. ThoughtWorks last year, now what we call professional services, our technical business, which mixes development and all the other non-technical delivery skills, we were operating at about 40% diversity across all the roles. In actual recruitment, we recruited more than we ever did in the UK last year. We recruited about 150 people, and we did that at 41% diversity. Fundamentally, and I think this is the key aspect, people think, oh, well, you must just be recruiting women because you want to recruit women. That's nonsense. I think the bar itself never moves. The bar is always the same. The key aspect to it is creating a diverse pool, a pipeline of candidates that represent underrepresented groups. You're more likely to recruit for diverse candidates if you're actually creating the opportunity of speaking to, interviewing, and bringing diversity through the actual pipeline. I don't think anyone ever gets to, well, maybe they do, but ThoughtWorks certainly don't, where you get to the point where you've got two candidates and which one do you offer? And you hire the diverse candidate. That never happens for us. What we do is constantly look for diverse candidates. Hire both, exactly. You're looking for talent. You're looking for opportunities to hire talent. And by going out there, being proactive in speaking to, engaging, being at meetup groups, creating inclusive environments where people feel safe. So we've just moved office in Federation House. I think it's just called Federation, isn't it? I don't. Yeah. You're there. But we've actually built the office with inclusion in mind. So the width of the walkways are built around having wheelchairs. The doors themselves are on sliders, so people don't have to open them if they're in wheelchairs. The audios, the colour scheme. You'll see endless pictures of startup offices with pool tables and dark, sort of bachelor pad style environments where it's just shouting, "Come and work here if you are diverse." It doesn't do that. It's and you'll see having that mindset, being aware of that, and proactively going out and trying to find diverse candidates is the key. But we're pretty representative up here of what we see in the industry as of today, so that needs to change.
Yeah, I guess you've already just mentioned that a lot of that is because, particularly in the more mature parts of tech, we've been fishing in a very, a limited pool with relatively new fields. Data science as an example. We've got an opportunity to change that. So the data science team at Autotrade is 40% female. Okay, as I said before, there's only 5 of us at the moment, so that's 2 out of 5. But why do we want that diversity? Like you say, it's not about changing the bar. We want that diversity because then you get diversity of thought. And when you particularly in an area like data science where you're solving problems, a lot of it's about proof of concept, not necessarily about implementation. You really need that variety of angles to solve a problem. If you've got diversity of peoples, of backgrounds, you've got diversity of mindsets, you've got diversity of input. That's ultimately going to benefit. How do we do that? Yeah, like you said, we have to get better at going out there. One of the things that's I've learned is actually just how we phrase our adverts, the wording we put into a tech advert. Often before, we might have a whole long list of of criteria, skills that we want to, which would be desirable or essential. Often that can be off-putting. You found that male candidates are quite happy to sort of ignore, well, I don't have that skill set, but I'll still apply it, as opposed to female candidates might filter. So just subtle changes to adverts, and just sort of to encourage a better initial pool of applicants, can actually have a marked effect.
Yeah. So something I'd add to that as well is you've got to think about the background that some of these people are coming from. They're either coming from a situation of poverty or a situation of where they've been told that's not the kind of thing for them to do, just throughout their lives to where they've got to. So they've already fought really hard to get in the door against a privileged male who's had a good education, is very confident in their abilities, is going to be very much more bullish about their salary. When you put the two together, you could be, oh, well, okay, this person doesn't look like they've come across very confident in themselves, or they're a bit unsure, or they're not really telling us about their skills. You've got to think about your interview process, and you've got to think about how you're making sure that you're not biasing yourself. So there's this thing called unconscious bias, and we've run some training courses at the Co-op around that. You've got to really try and look at how you can avoid those unconscious biases that your automatic parts of your brain is naturally applying in that interview process. Some of the things you can do about that is making sure that your interview group is not just one person, it's more than one. You're just trying to find a diverse mix of people in your organization to take through that interview process. But it's also just being really mindful of that I've seen some people come from difficult backgrounds, or particularly women, suffering real bad imposter syndrome, and had the real opportunity to see them come out the other side and give them those opportunities where they're real thought leaders, and that's really exciting. That's really important, and I just really wanted to kind of emphasize that as well. It's not just about getting that pool, it's about the way that you're thinking about how you interview for them as well.
I'm older than I look, by the way, so I remember 10, 12 years ago working in agencies, working on site at places where there's very much a culture of programmers. Has everyone come across this term? And essentially it would be a bunch of 25-year-old blokes having a laugh at the expense of anything. It was almost like being on a building site. And I come from a military background. It was almost as bad as being out in the field with squaddies. I'm very, very glad to say I haven't been in that culture for a very long time now. And I think that everyone here is partly responsible for that. So I want to say thank you, because I found that quite uncomfortable. I'm not really that kind of person. So it's definitely a lot better than it used to be.
Yeah, conscious of time now, because I can see that the food's arriving, so and I'm hungry. So yeah, I wanted to give anyone in the audience the opportunity, if they've got any questions, if you want to raise a hand. Amal, there we go.
I mean, you talk about diversity, and I think obviously it's massively important, and you've all recognised that, especially what Monica and Rob said. And you talk about women, you talk about different backgrounds. One of the things I don't think gets talked about enough ages as well, and sort of beginners coming into that, no matter what age, and the wealth of experience they might bring into that business. not just as someone who can go in and go, okay, we've got transferable skills, we've lived these things, but actually as potential consumers for the product that you're building, because the co-op as a shop, for example, attracts whatever age. It's not about, you know, let's give opportunities to young people. It's actually, let's actually figure out that this person might be important on our dev team. What are you doing around sort of bringing in sort of older talent?
In my experience, struggling, genuinely struggling. Honestly, I've hired and helped bring on board probably 120 people in the last 12 to 18 months. I remember one day when I was at the Hut, I accepted 18 graduates, and they were all 24, 25. 18 in a day, new guys in there. One of the things I did while I was hiring for Auden Group is that I wanted a more experienced team. I knew that budget-wise we didn't have the ability to take on lots of people, train lots of people. And it wasn't so much that I was looking for grey hair, it was more that I didn't want anybody with less than 5 years experience, because frankly we didn't have the resources to put in to train them. What I've found is it's very difficult to hire that age group. Like myself, married, 3 kids, a house, I don't have time to start learning new technologies all the time. And the usual sell for getting people to come in is, look at all this new stuff you can learn. And frankly, there's those of us that go, shit, that was another 20 hours over the next month on Google just trying to work out how the bloody hell to install these NPM packages in the right bloody order. Yeah, you'll figure it out, but we don't have generally the same amount of time as a fresh graduate will have to learn the new technologies. So when trying to hire from the experienced end of the spectrum and the fresh graduates, it can be very hard to get that mix right. So it's a really, really good point. Honestly, I don't know what the solution to that is.
So we've done a couple of things actually. So we are currently going to be running a returnship program for people who have been in some sort of either a commercial role or a technical role previously, and then they've moved out for whatever career reasons or life-changing reasons, and then they want to get back into technology. So we're running that this year. We've also looked at operationally as a business. One of the big challenges we have is that we are a consultancy, so the majority of our work is delivered by a team of technologists from ThoughtWorks on a client location. Now, you might be based in Manchester as a consultant, but the work might be in Edinburgh, the work might be in Leeds, it might be anywhere in the UK. It does bring constraints for people because everyone has work-life balance challenges, everyone has families, and the type of being away Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday doesn't always work for everyone. So we've operationally looked to change our commercial model around being more distributed in our work, actually bringing a lot of clients to us, changing our business models around running more venture businesses where we can work with smaller startups in their environment or bring them to us. So it gives us an opportunity of hiring people into a more stable location, gives them opportunities of working within the ThoughtWorks environment, and all of the things I talked about earlier about the building and the actual inclusive sort of environment they're going to work in actually kicks into play then because they're actually going to be working there. So those are the things we've looked at.
I think that's right. It's a really, really difficult one. I think, and one of the areas around diversity, and I think it applies across the board, including ageist, is that as an industry, we're kind of really geared towards young people. So when you read down a job description and you look at the benefits package, actually we put a lot of people off. So, free parties, free drinks on a Friday, and we all go out. I'm a working mum. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. And actually what you're saying to me is that you don't really want me there. And I think that applies to a whole host of people for religious reasons, for older people, but that's not appropriate. And actually we think it's really sexy and we're doing a really good job, but actually we're giving out the wrong message sometimes. So a bit like not naming names, but there are a couple of companies in Manchester that do that quite a lot. We've got a one of these and one of those, and you're like, well, great, but that doesn't apply to me. Yeah, no, me neither. I've never used the pool, and I've never played on the Mario Kart either. So,
anyone else got any questions?
Yeah, I just speak out if you want to shout out. So it doesn't apply to all of you on the panel, but a few of you are kind of digital
start if you want. We're an ad agency. I came from a digital background. And I used to joke. So my team used to be, we have a great big round building if anyone's been to McCann, and my team used to be at the end, and I used to joke that the idea would start at the other end of the building and get handed down, and then it would arrive to me and someone would go, got any digital ideas? I'd be like, you're joking. Like, this started 12 weeks ago. I would have had some great ideas. It's taken 5 years of saying to everyone, please invite me to every single meeting ever. I've now got to the point where I'm like, please stop inviting me to every single meeting ever. And things have shifted for like loads of different reasons. A lot of it has been about, as a business, got a great CEO, and Sue's been very keen to make sure that there's real digital representation right at the top, so that right up at management level, it's in there right from the beginning. And it's taken a lot of, I guess, as everyone's kind of said before, it takes a long time, and you need to be really open and say, yes, I'll come along, and yeah, I'll have a chat, and I'm open to having this chat. And then sometimes it takes you having a bit of a rant and going, I remember having probably a half-hour argument with our executive creative director about whether we should put money on YouTube or just buy another slot in the Coronation Street, but I did not back down. Sometimes they're the fights you have. I remember standing on the media floor shouting at each other, but I won, so it was fine.
I mean, you get this in every organisation, but it's the them and us thing, and we're all guilty of it, particularly from the lens of digital folks. I think you can be really patronising. You can be thinking that you're better than the people who are in the other part of the organisation with the different ways of working. Also, you start making things up as well. You start conspiracizing for why things are happening, or they don't want us here, they're just trying to squash this kind of thing. The really interesting thing about that is when you try and think differently about it, and you try and put yourself in someone else's situation, you look at those systematic factors that are around it, you start getting on a lot better. The most interesting thing that I've learned recently is it's not even culture. It's the way that finances are organised. So one of the things in traditional organisations is they're very CapEx heavy in the way that they run things. They're very project based as well. So there's a great long thing on Martin Fowler's Blicky, product versus project. That creates a lot of the behaviours. So like actually as individuals, like really fantastic. There's some really great examples. What's that Stanford prison experiment? There was one, they got a couple of camps of kids. Go and look these things up, they're really interesting. You put yourself in different situations. You think you're great. Put yourself in the different situation and see how you behave, because it really is so much more around the system than the individuals. And I think too often you cause yourself too much problems by treating it as, well, that person's just, doesn't know what they're doing. That's the biggest hurdle. I think a lot of the education really isn't about agile. It really isn't about different ways of working. You've got to be looking about how you organise yourself a bit further up in frankly, your finances and other things that really create an environment where people can work in. And yes, it's really hard and it takes a long time and it's very stressful. But I think the thing around that is probably some of the most meaningful and valuable work you can be doing, because you are working in really big, prestigious organisations, providing a lot of value. It's not just places like the Co-op where we really do have that sense of purpose. Where there's a real need for it, and it can really affect people's lives. And again, when it's large organisations, even the littlest impact you can have massively reverberates through the organisation, and that's really thrilling as well. You can work in a small startup that doesn't make any money and it's constantly going through rounds of investment, and it's fantastic though because we're moving really fast, but nobody's listening, mate. So I actually really enjoy it. I think one of the things I've really felt, having been in organisations where my responsibility was growing and building those things at scale, I then went into it's really painful and it's really hard, and the culture thing's really hard. Then I went into somewhere I had the opportunity to start from the beginning and not have all of those problems. I actually realised I really enjoy it. I don't know if it's sadistic or masochistic. I can't remember which the one is, but it's hard, it's not easy, but I think a massive amount of emotional maturity, treating all your colleagues with respect makes a big difference.
Just wanted to reinforce the point that you just made there. I normally have 2 rules of the tech team. I'm hoping everyone's seen Fight Club. The first rule of the tech team is don't be a dick. The second rule of the tech team is don't be a dick. And as long as you don't be a dick and you have the emotional maturity to treat the people who don't have the background in tech and don't understand what you're talking about with the same respect that you treat your mum, you're going to be all right.
Yes, I think we'll... oh, we've got some more questions.
I'll try and keep this short and sweet as possible, but as a female under 30 in senior management in one of the fastest growing tech companies in the Northwest, our dev team is 50-50 split, male and female. What are you actually doing as managers to ensure that you've got that diversity? Because we have.
Was that a mic drop?
The girl on the team. I haven't been called a girl for a long time, thank you. I was talking to our HR manager about this because we're one of the companies that are going to have to start publishing internally, externally our pay gap. And we were talking about sort of what are we doing and how are we doing it. So my team's gone from 2 years ago having only one female in the whole team to having 7. And I know that is still not a great statistic, but we are shifting it in the right place. So we're looking at a few initiatives, one of which is sort of me being out more and talking to people more, going into school. So I'm a STEM ambassador, and actually the team and the females on the team invest that back in. The males on the team do, to be fair. Our UX director does a lot of work around that. I think the best we can do is, I think some of the guys here sort of talked about, I think our pipeline isn't right, so we're really actively trying to get that pipeline right. I got very excited the other day when a dev CV came through and then she got offered somewhere else, and I was just like, I can't believe it, I don't know what to do here. So I congratulate you on having a 50-50 split. I don't. I'd love to know how you did it. We're trying very hard and looking at kind of some of the stuff. Yeah, well, let's have a chat, because it would be really interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up on that. What? Or you want one more than the food?
Yeah, I'd just like to say the co-op, our chief executive is 50-50. Our digital leadership team, we have on our digital team, is 50-50 as well. Our engineering team is 40%, which is above. And last year, the offers that we made, I think, was more offers to women than it was to men. And again, that was not because they were women. I will also reiterate that we do the Liverpool Geek Girls. We're going to the Women's Leads Hack next weekend. We support like about 3 or 4 different events for women, which for me is really about, you know, there is that point where women get turned off the careers in this industry, which we're really trying to go for and catch them. And that's not getting us into the people into this organisation in the next 2 years. That's going to be the people that come in the next 3 or 4 or 5. So, you know, we're really trying to do our bit.
All right, well, yeah, I think we're going to have to wrap it up, guys, but if you want some FaceTime with them afterwards, that's, I think the food's here. And
50-50?
Role models, yeah, I think it's a key aspect. Our global CTO, Rebecca Parsons, is a woman. Our MD in the UK, Ruth Harrison, is a woman. Our head of people is a woman. Our head of capability. 4 members of our technical advisory board globally, and a number of 40% of our technical staff in the UK.
I'm starting to get the feeling that you're just hogging all the chips now. But yeah, I mean, you know, guys, unless there's anything else you want to add.
But it'd be great to have a chat later to find out how you're all doing it. It'd be fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah, you know, thank you very much, guys. Think give a round of applause.